You're listening to the free ad-sponsored re-release of American Elections Wicked Game, a weekly march through every presidential election from 1789 to 2024. To listen to all episodes right now ad-free, go to intohistory.com. Subscribers there enjoy ad-free listening, early access, bonus content, and more from a growing collection of great history podcasts. Start your free trial today at intohistory.com. It's before dawn on May 2, 2011 in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Members of Navy SEAL Team 6 make their way towards the third floor of the main building of a large, walled-in compound. As they climb the stairs, they see movement in the shadow of a man. One of the SEALs fires off multiple sound-suppressed rounds. The shadow flees into a room, and the SEALs follow. It's the bedroom. Neutralizing this shadow of a man has been the goal of the mission from the beginning. 3 SEALs enter to the sounds of women crying and yelling in Arabic. One of the women is bleeding from her leg. There are children in the corner. Clear the room. One SEAL team member who speaks fluent Arabic quickly moves the women and children out onto the balcony. He does his best to calm them and quiet them down. While he attends to the bleeding woman's wounds, 2 other SEALs survey the bedroom. Do we get him? He's moving. The man lies on the floor. Bullets have collapsed part of his skull and one of his eyes, but his body is twitching. The 2 SEALs fire into the man's chest until his body goes limp. The soldiers stare at the body from every possible angle. This might be our boy. All right, let's get photos and DNA. The SEALs take pictures of the body and get multiple swabs of DNA samples. He's younger than I imagined, different than the pictures. It could be the wounds. The SEAL who speaks Arabic steps back into the bedroom from the balcony. So is it him? We think so, but we can't be 100% sure. The SEAL from the balcony goes to one of the women. She's still crying. He talks to her as calmly as he can. He asks in Arabic about the man in the bedroom. Who is the man in the bedroom? The Sheikh! The Sheikh! The woman is hysterical as tears stream down her face. The SEAL gives up on the woman and approaches one of the children, a younger girl. He crouches down and asks the same question. Who is the man in the bedroom? The girl looks up at the soldier. Osama bin Laden. The soldier steps back from the girl, wheels around and grabs the woman by the arm. He asks her again, just to be certain. Do not lie to me now. Who is that man in the bedroom? Osama. Osama what? Osama bin Laden. The SEAL steps back into the bedroom where the others are still staring at the body on the floor. I have dual confirmation. Let Washington know. We got him. Navy SEALs drag the body of Osama bin Laden down the stairs and across a courtyard into a waiting Black Hawk helicopter. After almost a decade of searching and several near misses, the United States found and killed the man behind the attacks of 9/11. Soon, Osama bin Laden's body would be buried at sea. Americans would flood the streets in celebration, and a struggling Barack Obama would experience what is perhaps the defining moment of his presidency. From Airship, I'm Lindsey Graham, and this is American Elections Wicked Game. When Osama bin Laden was killed in the early hours of May 2, 2011, in the United States, it was still the middle of the day on May 1st. President Barack Obama had been following the mission from the White House Situation Room, along with Vice President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, members of the Joint Chiefs, and others on the president's national security team. Later that evening, television channels cut away from programming for a special announcement from the president.
Good evening. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men women, and children.
The mission was seen by many as a huge victory for President Obama, and it came at a time when he desperately needed one. The 2010 midterms had been disastrous for the Democrats and had put Obama's chance at re-election in jeopardy. Journalist Sasha Eisenberg would write, 2 years after Barack Obama's election as president, Democrats suffered their worst defeat in decades. The congressional majorities that had given Obama his legislative successes, reforming the health insurance and financial markets, were swept away in the midterm elections. Control of the House flipped, and the Democrats' lead in the Senate shrank to an ungovernable slim margin. Along with the usual push and pull between Democrats and Republicans, Obama now faced a growing contingent in Congress from a rising conservative populist faction known as the Tea Party. Obama's ability to push his policies through Congress had been greatly stifled by the Tea Party, and the midterms had made it clear independents who supported Obama in 2008 were moving to the right in large numbers. When he was first elected, Barack Obama had received more votes than any other presidential candidate in history and had beaten his Republican opponent John McCain handily. With the 2012 general election on the horizon, 2008 now seemed like the distant past. The Republicans saw a clear opening. But within the GOP, there were questions regarding the direction the party should move in. Should their candidate bridge the gap between the right and the left, or should they embrace the populist wave the Tea Party was helping usher in? The debate over these questions resulted in a crowded field of hopeful Republican nominees. One of them was former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. Romney was a wealthy businessman and a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or in more common parlance, a devout Mormon. Romney was someone moderate Republicans hoped could sway swing voters and independents who'd helped elect Obama in 2008. But Romney's path to the nomination wouldn't be easy. Those who wanted the GOP to move farther to the right had already started to look for their anti-Romney candidate. Some thought their best hope was a man who'd already made headlines attacking Barack Obama. This is episode 57, 2012, Obama versus Romney, the rich boy. During the 2008 election, a conspiracy theory that Barack Obama was not born in the United States had spread and given rise to what is now known as the birther movement. Obama had released his short-form birth certificate, but the claims wouldn't go away. While running against Obama in 2008, Senator John McCain had refused to give the theory any credence and had little effect on the election. In 2011, the birther movement resurfaced. One of its most vocal advocates was a New York businessman and television personality, Donald J. Trump. In February of 2011, Trump had been a surprise speaker at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. In his speech, Trump suggested he was thinking about running for president. He said, "If I run and if I win, this country will be respected again, I can tell you that." After CPAC, the idea of a Trump candidacy had gathered steam, and he started to make the talk show rounds. In a number of television appearances, Trump had suggested the short-form birth certificate Obama released wasn't proof he was born in Hawaii. Americans needed to see the long-form birth certificate. On April 7, 2011, Trump had said on NBC, "I have people that have been studying it, and they cannot believe what they're finding. He spent $2 million in legal fees trying to get away from this issue, and if it weren't an issue, why wouldn't he just solve it? I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics, and in history, period." Less than 3 weeks after that comment, the White House had released Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate. Trump had held a press conference where he claimed, "I know what I think. He only did it because of Trump." A few months later, Barack Obama got the chance to confront Donald Trump on April 30th, 2011. President Obama had spent the afternoon of the 30th signing off on the mission that would lead to Osama bin Laden's death 24 hours later. President Obama had spent the night of the 30th at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. No one in the audience would have suspected what Obama had spent his day doing. On stage, he had been easygoing, loose, and funny. But the president had reserved some of his harshest jokes for Donald Trump and his birther claims. Trump, a guest at the dinner, had laughed along for much of the night, but many claimed the president's remarks had angered Trump. Trump said he loved that the president joked about him. It was host Seth Meyers that he didn't like. After the Correspondents' Dinner, many assumed talks of a Trump candidacy would fade, but for Trump, the desire to run for president had only become stronger. Whether it was Obama's comments, his positive poll numbers, or just a gut feeling driving him, the New York businessman and TV celebrity started to believe that he might be the one who could stop Obama and take the White House back for the Republicans. It's May 11th, 2011 in New York City. Donald Trump steps into his penthouse apartment. The gold and marble decor, modeled after the style of King Louis XIV, is a stark contrast to where he spent his day. Earlier, Trump helicoptered into Nashua, New Hampshire for a lunch hosted by the Nashua Chamber of Commerce. While Nashua doesn't move at the speed Trump is used to, he's grown fond of it, especially since his polling numbers in New Hampshire have started to climb. Trump's wife, Melania, greets him at the door. "How was your trip to New Hampshire?" "The trip was great. I like New Hampshire, and they love me there. And in Iowa, I like Nevada, South Carolina. I think we could do well in a lot of places." New Hampshire isn't the only state where Trump has seen strong poll numbers. After his CPAC speech, he attracted large numbers of fiscal conservatives who are eager to have an entrepreneur in the White House. He's also attracted many Tea Party supporters who are tired of entrenched politicians on both sides of the aisle. "So have you decided if you're going to run or not?" "I don't know. I'd say it's 50-50. NBC needs a decision in a few days. They want to announce their lineup, and they have to know what to do with the Apprentice shows. You'd be giving up a lot. The network pays me a fortune. It's almost criminal. Not just the television show, the real estate too. The resort in Miami. Would you still be able to build it?" "Not if I run. That's one more thing I'd have to give up. But the numbers are great, polling neck and neck with Romney. But I don't think he's what people want." "You don't like him?" "I don't know him. He seems fine, but he's a small business guy. Buys companies and fires everybody. And there's no excitement. He's like a show on Broadway that's done before it even opens. I could beat him. A campaign would cost you money. A lot of money I'd be spending instead of making. But if I don't do it, would I be the first guy to drop out when he's this high in the polls? You're already a big star. You'll be a star whether you do it or not." Donald Trump would continue to mull over the decision for days, but after his talk with his wife, he knew which way he was leaning. On May 13, 2011, Trump told NBC executives he would be staying on television. On May 16th, he released an official statement, and Donald Trump's 2012 candidacy for president came to an end before it even started. With Trump out of the race, many conservatives fixed their sights on John McCain's 2008 running mate, Sarah Palin. In July of 2009, Palin had resigned as governor of Alaska just 2.5 years into her first term. Since then, she'd become a mainstay in the media. She'd had her own reality show, Sarah Palin's Alaska, and was the focus of a documentary called Undefeated that had been made by right-wing populist director Stephen K. Bannon. Her latest media blitz consisted of a cross-country bus tour where she'd stop along the way to give speeches attacking Barack Obama and the mainstream media. On May 31, 2011, Sarah Palin and Donald Trump dined together at a pizzeria in Manhattan. Speculation grew that Trump would back a Palin candidacy. And throughout the summer of 2011, Palin remained the highest-profile potential candidate, but she wouldn't commit. Ultimately, in October of 2011, she decided not to jump into an already crowded GOP field. She would remain a player in the Republican Party, but she would not seek the presidency. With both Donald Trump and Sarah Palin out of the picture, the path looked clear for the man many hoped would be the frontrunner, Mitt Romney. Still, Romney wasn't catching on with the more conservative wing of the party, and Romney faced a slew of challengers: former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, Texas Governor Rick Perry, former Senator Rick Santorum, and businessman Herman Cain all tried to win over the right wing of the party and bring Romney down. In this way, Romney faced an uphill battle. He was believed to have a net worth of about $250 million at the time, and many saw him as being out of touch with everyday Americans. Others believed the former governor of Massachusetts was simply too liberal. After all, it was no secret that parts of the Massachusetts health care program, Romney Care as some called it, bore a striking resemblance to what was arguably Barack Obama's signature achievement, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. As 2011 came to a close, a series of gaffes and potential scandals started to whittle down the Republican field. Texas Governor Rick Perry had become a favorite among the Tea Party, but early on he torpedoed his campaign. At a debate in Michigan, Perry attempted to name the 3 federal agencies he would cut if he were to become president. His response would come to be known as the oops heard round the world.
I would do away with the education, commerce, and let's see, I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
Perry tried to mitigate the damage, but his campaign never fully recovered. Just days after Perry's onstage gaffe, Herman Cain, who was climbing in the polls, sat down with the editorial board of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Cain was asked if he agreed with how President Obama had handled the toppling of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi.
I do not agree with the way he handled it for the following reason. No, that's a different one. I got to go back and see. Got all this stuff twirling around in my head.
Questions about Kane's understanding of foreign policy halted his rise in the polls. When earlier allegations of sexual harassment resurfaced, it became clear his campaign was done. Herman Cain withdrew from the primary in early December of 2011. As voting in the GOP primary started in 2012, there were fewer candidates, but still no clear frontrunner. This was made all too evident when 3 different candidates won the first 3 states. On January 3, 2012, after a recount, Rick Santorum narrowly edged out Mitt Romney in the Iowa caucus. Romney went on to win New Hampshire on January 10th, but less than 2 weeks later, Newt Gingrich won in South Carolina. Super Tuesday, always an important date in the primary season, held the key to who would grab the frontrunner mantle. On January 25, 2012, just days after he won in South Carolina, Newt Gingrich gave a speech in Florida. In it, he pledged that as president, he would build an American base and a permanent colony on the moon. Gingrich's speech quickly became fodder for late-night comedians. It also allowed Mitt Romney to lob one of his favorite attacks at Gingrich. Romney had long mocked the former speaker's zany ideas, and the moon base comments helped Romney hammer that point home. While Gingrich's speech might not have done irreparable damage, he would later say, "It was not my most clever comment in this campaign." Just over a month later, Super Tuesday took place on March 6, 2012. Of the 10 states holding primaries, Mitt Romney won 6, Rick Santorum won 3, and Newt Gingrich won only his home state of Georgia. The results were clear. The nomination would be Romney's, and he was guaranteed to make history, becoming the first Mormon presidential candidate for a major party. Moving into the general election, Mitt Romney would have to win over the conservative wing of his party, make concessions to please the growing Tea Party movement, and shake the image that he was out of touch with everyday Americans. But missteps in the campaign would continue to set him back, and soon Mitt's biggest problems would prove to be a hidden camera, an empty chair, and a rambling Hollywood icon.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Icebergs, jagged rocks and rocky straits, mutinies, misfortune, and broadside battles. There are more tales of the sea than survivors to tell them, but the podcast Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs is doing a good job, and you can listen to all episodes of that podcast plus many others, including American Election's Wicked Game, without interruption by subscribing at intohistory.com. Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs is one of my favorites from last year, a podcast about the greatest mishaps, misfortune, and misadventures of the sea. You'll hear stories of corruption, greed, bad intentions, and just plain horrible decision-making that resulted in some of the worst maritime disasters from all over the world. And some of these are more recent than you think. All episodes are ad-free, including bonus content and more at intohistory.com. Subscribe now at intohistory.com. When it became clear Mitt Romney would be the Republican nominee, the Obama campaign went on the attack. The former governor of Massachusetts, they said, was a plutocrat who cared only about money. In 1984, Romney had been a co-founder of the investment firm Bain Capital. While Romney had stepped away from Bain in 1999 to lead the 2002 Winter Olympics effort in Salt Lake City, the Obama team had no intention of letting Romney's past business ventures go unquestioned. The picture they painted of Bain on the campaign trail was of a firm that dismantled companies, outsourced jobs overseas, and thoughtlessly and callously laid off hard-working Americans. Romney, they argued, didn't care about Americans. He only cared about profits. Barack Obama made the election about a clear choice, saying, "We do not need an outsourcing pioneer in the Oval Office. We need a president who will fight for American jobs." Early attack ads from the Obama camp hit Romney for what they claimed were his millions in Swiss bank accounts and in tax havens like the Cayman Islands. Romney retorted that Obama and the Democrats were just proving they were anti-business and anti-capitalism. Romney even suggested Obama attacked success. Despite Romney's arguments, the image of him as an out-of-touch millionaire seemed to be catching on. In July of 2012, Paul Krugman, one of the many writers to tackle the subject, wrote an opinion piece on Romney in the New York Times. Krugman led with a quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald's short story, The Rich Boy. "Let me tell you about the very rich. They are different from you and me." As the Republican National Convention approached, Mitt Romney found himself being attacked by the left for being an out-of-touch plutocrat and being attacked by some of the right for being too liberal. Conservative writer Eric Erickson argued that having Romney as a nominee meant conservatism dies and Obama wins. The Wall Street Journal featured the dreaded term rhino, Republican in name only, when breaking down several of Romney's proposed policies. The Romney can't believe their candidate could beat Obama on policy, but not if Romney lost support in his own party. This put a substantial amount of pressure on Romney's vice presidential selection process. Romney thought John McCain's choice of Sarah Palin as an appeal to the conservative wing of the GOP had been a mistake, and he didn't want to repeat it. Still, he knew that as a perceived moderate, he had to widen his appeal to the Republican Party's base. In some ways, Romney's problem was reminiscent of the problem Ronald Reagan had faced in the 1980 election. Reagan's selection of moderate George H.W. Bush for vice president had been made in part to appeal to those in the party who felt Reagan was too conservative. Romney had Reagan's problem, only in reverse. Initially, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie topped the list of potential running mates. Romney, who prided himself on his healthy lifestyle and comporting himself gracefully in public, worried about Christie's weight and his often combative nature. Christie's physical appearance had garnered him the codename Pufferfish in the vetting process. Romney's aides told him the stark contrast between him and Chris Christie was exactly why they needed the New Jersey governor. Campaign strategist Stuart Stevens told Romney, "We're in a street fight, and he's a street fighter. He's comfortable saying things that you're not comfortable saying." During the vetting process, though, potential controversies surrounding Christie came to light. There were allegations the governor spent taxpayer money on nights at high-end hotels. Others claimed Chris Christie illegally steered lucrative government contracts to friends and supporters. Ultimately, the Romney camp decided there were too many possible skeletons in Christie's closet, and Romney decided that picking a street fighter was not his style. Hailing from Wisconsin, Representative Paul Ryan had gained a reputation in the Republican Party as a policy wonk. He had been elected to the House before he'd even turned 30. Now, at 42, he was viewed by many as the future of the Republican Party. His conservative views on health care and Social Security helped him appeal to the far right wing of the GOP, which is exactly what Romney needed. And while Romney and Ryan didn't always agree on policy, the two men got along well. Ryan viewed his Catholicism as an integral part of who he was, just as Romney did with his own Mormonism. And where Chris Christie's health had been a concern for Romney, Paul Ryan fit the bill. Some of the most circulated photos of Paul Ryan would be of him posing during a workout. So on Saturday, August 11th, 2012, at a rally in Norfolk, Virginia, Mitt Romney officially introduced Paul Ryan as his running mate. That month of August, the polls were tight, and both camps were looking for an edge. But the selection of Paul Ryan garnered mixed results. But while Romney saw dips in national polls, the Ryan pick had positive impact in crucial battleground states. Many in the Romney campaign believed that once Paul Ryan took the stage at the upcoming Republican National Convention, the national polls would fall in line with the battleground polls. Romney and Ryan would start to create a united front, hoping to rally both the conservative and moderate wings of the party. But the two Republican candidates would soon find themselves upstaged by a living legend, and they learned that even an imaginary Barack Obama could steal their thunder. It's Thursday, August 30th, 2012, in Tampa, Florida. Russell Schrieffer, a Romney advisor, sits with legendary actor and filmmaker Clint Eastwood in a Marriott hotel suite. "Mr. Eastwood, Mitt and I and the entire team want to thank you for changing your schedule to accommodate us. Happy to do it." Tropical Storm Isaac forced the cancellation of the first night of the Republican National Convention. Not everyone scheduled to appear has been able to reschedule for a later date, including Donald Trump. So the Romney team is especially happy a massive star like Eastwood has made the time. "Mr. Eastwood, would you like to go over some parts of your speech? You can use the outlaw Josie Wales image in my intro." Thank you for that. Yeah, we're excited about the intro. Can we talk a little more about what you're going to say?" "Well, everyone says the same thing, how much they like Mitt. Of course, we all like Mitt. We wouldn't be here if we didn't." "Well, we were hoping you'd make a similar speech to the one you gave at the Idaho fundraiser. Maybe use that quote from Mystic River. Just keep it between 5 and 7 minutes." Eastwood nods. Speeches at party conventions are usually heavily vetted, but that has never been a part of the process with Clint. Romney is a huge fan. The fact that Eastwood agreed to speak at all is enough for Romney, but that's not enough for Russell Schrieffer. He's a little concerned that Eastwood is a wild card. Additionally, I can arrange for a teleprompter for you, Mr. Eastwood. I don't need it. Schrieffer tries to reassure himself. Clint Eastwood is one of the biggest Hollywood stars ever, he thinks. He'll do fine in front of a crowd. Momentarily convinced, Schrieffer excuses himself. Well, I need to step out for a bit, Mr. Eastwood. We'll head over to the convention soon. Looking forward to it. Alone in the room, Eastwood tries to clear his mind and collect his thoughts before his speech. He gets up and turns on the radio. As Neil Diamond blares through the speaker, a lyric from his song, I Am, I Said, sticks in Eastwood's mind. I am, I said to no one there, and no one heard at all, not even the chair. Later that night, Clint Eastwood waits backstage at the Tampa Bay Times Forum. He's still not exactly sure what he's going to say, but the Neil Diamond lyric from earlier has given him inspiration. He flags down one of the backstage crew. Hey, come here a second. What can I do for you, Mr. Eastwood? Need a favor. Eastwood points to an empty chair nearby. Put that chair just to the left of the podium before I go out for my speech. Of course. Thanks, kid. The crowd roared as Clint Eastwood stepped onto the stage with a massive silhouette of his younger self as his backdrop. He gave his opening remarks, and they brought down the house. Then, Clint Eastwood turned to the empty chair the crew member had set for him and addressed it as though Barack Obama was sitting in it.
So, Mr. President, how do you handle promises that you made when you were running for election, and how do you handle it? I mean, what do you say to people? Do you just I know people were wondering. You don't have it. Okay. Well, I know even some of the people in your own party were very disappointed when you didn't close Gitmo. And I thought, I think closing Gitmo, why close that? We've spent so much money on it. But I thought maybe it's an excuse. What do you mean, shut up?
Clint Eastwood spoke for over 11 minutes. His interaction with the imaginary Obama was rambling, largely improvised, and moved much of the audience from laughter to stunned silence. Watching in the wings, Mitt Romney had found it funny at first. He asked Russell Schrieffer if they'd practiced this. Schrieffer replied, I have no idea what he's doing. By the end of the speech, Romney had no idea how they'd let this happen. The Romney campaign had gone into Tampa looking to grab headlines with a dynamic Romney-Ryan ticket that bridged the ideological and generational gaps in the Republican Party. They had hoped to leave the convention with renewed momentum, but what they got were mainly bad headlines. Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics, wrote, It was campaign malpractice that the Romney managers sent out a dithering, clueless Clint Eastwood. The Guardian published an article suggesting Eastwood's speech had turned Republicans' stomachs. Rumor had it that during the speech, Romney strategist Stuart Stevens excused himself to go vomit. Time would call it one of the most baffling and iconic moments of the 2012 election. For his part, President Barack Obama responded by simply tweeting a picture of himself sitting in the president's chair at the White House Cabinet Room with the caption, This seat is taken. Eastwood became the talk of the RNC, and the Romney campaign paid the price. In studying conventions dating back to 1964, political scientist Thomas Holbrook found that on average, candidates jumped 5.9 points in the polls post-convention. Nate Silver of 538 reached a similar conclusion, saying that going up 6 points after a convention is like shooting par. This effect is commonly known as the convention bounce or convention bump. But according to multiple polls following the 2012 Republican convention, Romney's convention bump was only 1 point. It was arguably an easy act for the Democrats to follow. Writing for Politico, Maggie Haberman would say, the Democrats put on a better convention. The big star's speech that broke through was not an aging actor talking to a chair. Instead, on September 6, 2012, Barack Obama accepted the nomination for president. He didn't bother mentioning the empty chair gaffe at the RNC. Instead, he hit Mitt Romney with a familiar refrain.
Over and over, we've been told by our opponents that bigger tax cuts and fewer regulations are the only way that since government can't do everything, it should do almost nothing. If you can't afford health insurance, hope that you don't get sick. If a company releases toxic pollution into the air your children breathe, well, that's the price of progress. If you can't afford to start a business or go to college, take my opponent's advice and borrow money from your parents. You know what? That's not who we are. That's not what this country's about.
After the Democratic National Convention, several national polls that had hovered close to a tie now showed Barack Obama with a 4 to 6 point lead and saw the president's approval rating rise to 54%. The Romney-Ryan ticket would have to regroup from the convention fallout. On the campaign trail, Romney often focused on Obama's economic policies, claiming, under President Obama, we have a stagnant economy that fosters government dependency. My policies will create a growing economy that fosters upward mobility. Paul Ryan challenged Obama on health care, but the vice presidential candidate also served as a voice for conservative values, saying, by not speaking up forcefully and clearly for American values of freedom and individual dignity and individual rights and religious freedom, we are projecting weakness abroad. By the end of the summer, Romney and Ryan's message was starting to resonate. In September and October, as both sides sprinted toward the finish line, the race would continue to tighten. But in the end, the election would be dominated by a secret video, a natural disaster, and a perceived betrayal from codename Pufferfish. Did you know you can skip ads and promos like these and listen to all episodes of American Elections Wicked Game without interruption by subscribing at IntoHistory.com? And not only will you be getting the whole series ad-free and bingeable, but you also get access to over a dozen more incredible history podcasts, also ad-free, like Her Half of History. Because even though Hillary Clinton may not have made history when she ran for president in 2016, there have always been women who seized power, spied for their country, created artistic masterpieces, even escaped slavery. Her Half of History is perfect for all those who sat in history class and wondered, what were the women doing all this time? Because the answer is a lot. Get Her Half of History, Wicked Game, and many others ad-free at IntoHistory.com. Subscribe now at IntoHistory.com. If you're a careful Wicked Game listener, you know in the credits I mentioned my friend Professor Greg Jackson and his podcast, History That Doesn't Suck. It's a great show. But one way it can doesn't suck even more is when you listen to it without ads. You can listen to all episodes of American Elections Wicked Game, all episodes of History That Doesn't Suck, and all episodes of many more great history podcasts without interruption by subscribing at IntoHistory.com. History That Doesn't Suck is a deeply researched chronological survey of American history from a trained academic who also knows how to tell a story. Plus, in addition to ad-free listening to one of the best American history podcasts out there, you get scores of bonus episodes at IntoHistory.com. Subscribe now at IntoHistory.com. On September 17, 2012, Mother Jones released a video of a Romney fundraiser that had been held months before. The video, shot from a hidden cell phone, proved to be more detrimental than any attack ad the opposing campaign could have run. In the video, Romney seems to embody the image of the out-of-touch millionaire the Obama campaign had tried to create.
There are 47% of the people who will vote for the president no matter what. All right, there are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it. And so my job is not to worry about those people. I'll never convince them that they should take personal responsibility and care for their lives. What I have to do is convince
the video quickly went viral. Barack Obama battered Romney for his 47% comments on the campaign trail and on late-night TV. Romney had spent much of the campaign fending off attacks that he only cared about wealthy Americans. But for many, the 47% video proved the Obama campaign had been right about him all along. As the video continued to dog the Romney campaign, Barack Obama got a boost when the economy started to show signs of rebounding from a recession that had begun at the end of George W. Bush's presidency. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate dropped below 8% for the first time since Obama had taken office, and America had added 114,000 new jobs. By the end of September, almost all major polls showed Obama in the lead, and several indicated he was starting to pull away from Mitt Romney. Romney came to believe the entire election could hinge on the first national debate in Denver. He never liked debate prep, but now he referred to it as the Manhattan Project of the campaign. Regardless of how he was trailing Obama in the polls, Mitt Romney was determined to leave Colorado with a clear lead and a clear path to victory. It's September 30th, 2012, at Boston's John Hancock Hall. Mitt Romney stands on stage opposite Republican Senator Rob Portman from Ohio. Portman is here to play the role of Barack Obama in a mock debate. It's a role he's familiar with. He stood in as Obama for the McCain team in 2008. Portman has also portrayed Al Gore, Joe Lieberman, and John Edwards. He's such a talented mimic that he's been called the Daniel Day-Lewis of the Republican Party. Portman, known as Faux-Obama by the team, hammers Romney about the fundraising video. And Romney is getting flustered by Portman, who has even perfected President Obama's hand gestures. Romney struggles to give an answer. I misspoke. I care about 100% of Americans. A voice comes from the back of the hall. It's Romney's advisor, Mike Levitt.
It's not good enough, Mitt.
Romney has been working on debate prep nonstop, but he's worried he won't be able to overcome the 47% comment. After the mock debate concludes, Romney huddles with his team. Guys, is this terminal? Romney looks to Levitt, but political consultant Eric Fernstrom jumps in first. No, it's not terminal, but you have to stop apologizing. You have to turn this back on him, Mitt. How? Tell him it's an insult. It's offensive. Say, how dare you, Mr. President? How dare you lie to the American people and say I don't care? Then say, I traveled the world doing missionary work. I was a pastor of my church for 10 years. Romney's eyes light up. He dashes out some notes and starts to repeat Fernstrom's words almost under his breath. How dare you, Mr. President? How dare... But don't stop there, Mitt. Say, when I was governor of Massachusetts, every child had health care. We had the best schools in the country. Your administration is crushing the poor. More people on food stamps, more people in poverty. Romney starts to make the words his own. This administration has failed working class Americans. Your administration has failed the poor. Fernstrom keeps pushing Romney. How dare you say I write off half the country? How dare you say I don't care? How dare you, Mr. President? Romney takes it all in. He glances at his notes and starts to run through his entire answer. Those in the room haven't seen their candidate this energized and passionate in a long time. As they leave John Hancock Hall, they know Mitt Romney is ready for the debate and ready to go toe-to-toe with Barack Obama. On October 3, 2012, Mitt Romney brought the energy from Hancock Hall onto the debate stage at the University of Denver. Romney went after Obama on health care, on government spending, on his failed promises. He also attacked Obama for what he saw as the lies the president had pushed about him and his policies.
Mr. President, you're entitled as a president to your own airplane and to your own house, but not to your own facts.
Many pundits said Romney managed to be both aggressive and likable. Obama, many said, appeared disengaged and unconcerned. For most, there was no question who'd won. Leslie Marshall, writing for U.S. News, said the debate was a wake-up call for the president and Democrats. Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign manager, James Carville, summed up the night by saying, "It looked like Romney wanted to be there, and President Obama didn't." The Obama campaign did its best to reduce the fallout from Denver, but there was no way to ignore what had happened. Mitt Romney surged into the lead in national polls from Gallup and Pew. Rumors of the Democrats going into a full-blown panic started to circulate. But Barack Obama wouldn't allow a repeat of Denver. In the second debate, on October 16th at Hofstra University, Obama was firing on all cylinders. He closed out the night by bringing everything back to the 47%.
I believe Governor Romney is a good man. Loves his family, cares about his faith. But I also believe that when he said behind closed doors that 47% of the country considered themselves victims who refused personal responsibility, think about who he was talking about. Folks on Social Security who've worked all their lives. Veterans who've sacrificed for this country. Students who are out there trying to hopefully advance their own dreams, but also this country's dreams. Soldiers who are overseas fighting for us right now. People who are working hard every day, paying payroll tax, gas taxes, but don't make enough income.
During the 2012 debate cycle, there were two key moments that caught the attention of the national media and the internet. While fielding a question about pay equity for women, Romney said, "I had the chance to pull together a cabinet, and all the applicants seemed to be men. I went to a number of women's groups and said, 'Can you help us find folks?' And they brought us whole binders full of women." While intended to highlight his efforts to hire women, Romney's binders full of women lit up the internet, even resulting in a Facebook page with hundreds of thousands of likes. The Washington Post wrote that Mitt Romney's binders full of women comment did more than go viral. It put women's issues back into the campaign spotlight. In response, Obama retorted at a campaign stop, "I've got to tell you, we don't have to collect a bunch of binders to find qualified, talented, driven young women." The second moment that made headlines was not about gender equality at home. It was about foreign adversaries overseas. Romney had previously called Russia, without question, our number one geopolitical foe. In the debate, in the middle of a discussion on foreign threats, Obama hit Romney with a zinger. The 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War's been over for 20 years. Fairly or unfairly, Romney's gaffes contributed to the idea that this Republican candidate was out of touch, a man stuck in a different era, and they arguably helped Obama erase the damage done at the first debate in Denver. A Gallup poll showed Obama winning the second debate 51% to 38%. Gallup results for the third debate gave Obama an even bigger win, with the president beating Mitt Romney 56 to 33%. Still, heading into October, pundits on both sides thought the election would be a nail-biter. But as often is the case in presidential elections, October would bring a surprise. This time, a natural disaster. On October 29, 2012, Hurricane Sandy ravaged parts of New Jersey. Barack Obama traveled to the state and met with Republican Governor Chris Christie. Photos emerged of the two walking through the damaged areas. On October 31st, at a joint press conference with the president, Christie addressed his constituents and a national audience.
And I cannot thank the president enough for his personal concern and compassion for our state and for the people of our state.
Obama's response to Hurricane Sandy was widely lauded. Some Republicans, however, saw Chris Christie's words and actions as a betrayal that would help Obama pick up crucial swing voters at the last minute. During Obama's trip, Fox and Friends had asked Christie if Mitt Romney would also be visiting damaged areas of New Jersey. Christie responded, "I've got a job here to do in New Jersey that's much bigger than presidential politics, and I could care less about any of that stuff. If you think right now I give a damn about presidential politics, then you don't know me." For some members of the Romney campaign, Christie's response felt like a personal jab, a direct shot to the man who had once considered Christie a possible running mate. Frank Vandersloot, a national finance chairman for Romney, said of Christie's comments, "I could understand him saying right now this is more important to me than that, but that's not what he said." Despite Christie's remarks, many Republican pundits felt confident going into Election Day. In the Wall Street Journal, Peggy Noonan assuaged Republican fears by saying the vibrations were right for a Romney win. Conservative radio and television host Glenn Beck and respected conservative writer George Will went a step further and claimed Romney would win in a landslide. A headline from U.S. News and World Report simply stated, "The air of invincibility has evaporated from the Obama campaign." Before the polls opened on Election Day, Bill Clinton's 1996 campaign manager, Dick Morris, weighed in. Morris, who had become a popular right-wing media figure, predicted Romney would win 325 to 213 in the Electoral College. So as polls opened on November 6, 2012, there was a strong sense among many that it would mark the end of Barack Obama's political career. Even if Obama won the popular vote, people like Dick Morris believed the Electoral College was Romney's for the taking. Then, shortly after 11 p.m. Eastern Time on the night of the 6th, networks started to call the election. The Electoral College was cut and dry, but not for Mitt Romney. Barack Obama won re-election with 332 Electoral College votes to Mitt Romney's 206. Obama's victory in the popular vote was significantly less than in 2008, but he still beat Romney by just under 5 million votes. The decisive Obama victory stunned many members of the conservative media. Pundits who were less surprised pointed to a slew of reasons for the result: the Obama campaign's ground game, the economic upswing, the killing of Osama bin Laden, and Obama's decisive leadership when Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast. USA Today writer David Jackson believed it was even simpler than that, though. For many voters, he wrote, the Obama campaign successfully portrayed Romney as a plutocrat businessman out of touch with the concerns of middle-class Americans. But the political gridlock and growing polarization in the country that plagued Barack Obama's first term didn't disappear with his re-election. Paul Harris of The Guardian stated, "As election euphoria fades, the harsh political facts facing Obama's second term require an adjustment of expectations." Obama's struggle to further his agenda grew even more difficult when the GOP reclaimed the House in the 2014 midterms and Romney's running mate Paul Ryan became Speaker of the House. And as Obama battled with Congress, members of the RNC would look ahead to the 2016 election. Many believed it wasn't Mitt Romney's wealth that had been his problem. Many believed the time of the moderate Republican had simply come to an end. In order to win the White House in 2016, some Republicans felt they needed a candidate who could connect with the working class and inspire an already growing populist movement within the party. Dissatisfaction with Obama, the Democrats, and the system as a whole would lead many members of the grand old party to seek out a new brand of republicanism. In 2016, the party would look to a Washington outsider who would seek to flout convention, break the mold, and drain the swamp. This is episode 57 of American Elections Wicked Game, 2012, The Rich Boy. On the next episode, the election of 2016. Donald J. Trump returns to the political arena, first as a long-shot candidate, and then as an improbable frontrunner, taking on the Democratic nominee, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Trump and Clinton go head-to-head in a divisive election that upends political norms and further deepens the divide between right and left. Did you know you can skip ads and promos like these and listen to all episodes of American Elections Wicked Game without interruption by subscribing at intohistory.com? And not only will you be getting the whole series ad-free and bingeable, but you also get access to over a dozen more incredible history podcasts, also all ad-free, like Wild West Extravaganza, a journey back to the fascinating, tumultuous, and often violent world of the American Old West. From famous outlaws like Billy the Kid and Jesse James, to lawmen like Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickok, to trailblazing pioneers and frontiersmen, Wild West Extravaganza tells the true stories of the real-life characters who shaped this iconic era. So saddle up and discover the true history of the American frontier, the good, the bad, and the ugly, ad-free at intohistory.com. This episode contains reenactments and dramatized details, and while in most cases we can't know exactly what was said, all our dramatizations are based on historical research. American Elections Wicked Game is an Airship production, hosted, edited, and executive produced by me, Lindsey Graham. Audio editing by Molly Bach. Sound design by Derek Behrens. Music by Lindsey Graham. Co-executive produced by Stephen Walters in association with Ritual Productions. Written and researched by Michael Federico. Translation by Drew Meacham. Fact-checking by Greg Jackson and Ciel Salazar from the podcast History That Doesn't Suck.
On a quiet June morning, an airliner took off from the Seattle area, headed to Anchorage, Alaska. Just after 10 a.m., one of the Northwest Airlines pilots radioed in, asking for permission to change altitude. Within moments, Northwest Airlines Flight 293, with 101 souls on board, soldiers and airmen, along with wives and children, on their way to Cold War assignments in the land of the midnight sun, was gone. In the skies 14,000 feet above the Gulf of Alaska, something went wrong.
They said they've lost radio contact with the plane.
What do you mean it's down? Well, they can't find the plane.
Whatever was left of Flight 293, including everyone on board, was a mile and a half underwater. Families buried empty caskets and put up backyard memorials as they waited for answers. Answers that never came. What did happen to Flight 293? Was it mechanical failure, human error, or something more sinister?
The DC-7 does not fall out of the sky. If you lost all four engines, any pilot will tell you that thing wouldn't just do a nosedive.
One of our planes landed with the Sidewinder missile gone.
It's a conspiracy theory.
And why do so many of the victims' loved ones say the U.S. government turned its back on them and tried to forget Flight 293?
Everything about this, my whole life, was hidden. I just think it's a travesty.
It was a living nightmare.
The military was going to have some kind of memorial. We never had a service of any kind.
I'm historian and journalist Felix Bonnell. I've been researching and studying Flight 293 for the past several years. I've interviewed experts and spoken with friends and family members of the 101 souls lost that dark day. Ordinary Americans impacted by extraordinary tragedy who've been searching for answers, searching for healing, and searching for closure. Unsolved Histories, Season 1. What Happened to Flight 293? New from the journalists of KSL Podcasts, searching for answers to some of the greatest mysteries of all time. Coming soon.